Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I am going to be joined by Michael DeLeonardis, and he is the Chief Revenue Officer at Verity. And Verity is doing automated inventory tracking and more that we'll learn about today via drones and AI intelligence as well. So we're going to dive into that topic. We're also going to talk a little bit about a recent project that they're working on involving RFID utilization too, which I think should be pretty interesting. So, Michael, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Kevin, and I really appreciate it. Looking forward to the conversation here.
Absolutely. Happy to get you on. Happy to talk to you, learn a little bit more about Verity. I think it's a little overdue, I'll say, for you guys to get on the podcast. I've been talking about this for a little while. I've seen you at a couple different conferences. So happy to finally dive into this and learn a little bit more from you, for myself and for the audience too as well. So why don't you give us kind of a brief overview of Verity to kick it off?
Absolutely. At Verity, we see ourselves as a warehouse intelligence platform, and we're able to deliver our solution through a convergence of various technologies. First and foremost is our robotics component, autonomous flying drones that essentially allow us to capture what's happening at the operational level, at the floor level within a warehouse. And then we bring that together with computer vision, artificial intelligence, and machine learning to deliver insights back to our clients so they can deliver a better ultimate customer experience for their end customers through better operational efficiency and supply chain resilience. We have only over 150 deployments worldwide
Mm,
across varying industries, from 3PLs to retail to manufacturing and footwear and apparel. And we deliver those across various regions, from Europe to North America to Africa and Asia.
mm. Interesting. So definitely a lot of deployments there, and a lot to I guess figure out, and use cases to I'm sure keep improving and extract a lot of data from. I'm sure with that many sites. So tell us a little bit about not only from what you're seeing in the market from those 150 deployments that you mentioned, but also outside of that as well as you talk to different people. I mean, what are some of the biggest challenges for these operations at the moment, and how are you trying to address those?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, the clients that are most successful with us and that we see the highest level of ROI coming from our solution are those that look at this truly as a way of impacting their customer experience.
Mm,
The warehouses that we deploy in are either virtually or literally right at the doorstep of that customer experience because they're fulfillment warehouses, or they're warehouses serving manufacturing that has broad sweeping impacts throughout the supply chain if for some reason there's disruptions in manufacturing cycle times. Right? With that, we're seeing clients look at our solution across the entire put to pack process, from receiving and labeling all the way through to put away to picking to labeling and shipping out the door. And with that broad exposure and capabilities, we're extracting considerable value for our clients. At the simplest level, we're reducing error rates. We're able to deliver a level of insights on a daily basis, whereas prior to our solution, the client may be able to get those insights, once every 3 or 4 months. Right?
mm,
Through that, they're dramatically reducing FTE headcount tied to inventory and cycle counting, as much as from 7 FTEs down to a half a FTE.
oh,
And then they're able to do that because of the improved accuracy they're getting within their warehouse. We're pushing upwards of 99.9% accuracy. Now, the accuracy one's an interesting piece because, without our insights, we get overly reliant on the digital data within our WMS, and we bring a different flavor of data. It's the actual physical locations and what's in those locations that completes the picture for our clients. To give you an example of some of the data we see, 80% of the lost goods that we find in a warehouse ends
mm,
up never having been registered in the WMS. So that reliance on
oh, wow.
just pure digital data doesn't paint the complete picture.
Mm,
And what that allows us to do is then identify lost goods that, in a lot of cases, especially at the scale of these warehouses, would have never been recovered. One client, we found over 25,000 units in just one quarter.
oh my god, and that's I mean that's big time money too, I imagine.
Yes. Absolutely.
Mm,
I mean, you're talking about four or $500,000 in lost goods that were in a stage where they were just waiting to notify the client and tell them they had lost those goods and they were going to have to write them off, and they were able to recover them.
mm,
And then as a result, that same client actually saw shrinkage go negative for the first time ever, because they
mm.
had found more goods than they had actually lost in some form of write off.
Wow, wow. Yeah, that's huge because, I mean, losing 1 pallet of inventory essentially can be pretty costly, and, yeah, yeah, and, you certainly as you mentioned, they were just kinda waiting to tell the client, "Hey, we lost this," and, that's never it's never a fun conversation to have, so it's awesome that they were able to change that conversation, for the client and tell them they were able to find all these things, and I think it's super interesting because I think a lot of people, they don't necessarily realize how easy it is to lose something in a large operation, in a warehouse or a manufacturing facility, whatever the case may be. I mean, it takes a few seconds to misplace something, but it could take hours, days, weeks to find it again. So having additional visibility makes such a difference. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about, 'cause you mentioned going down from 7 FTEs to like a half FTE. I mean, how many, like, locations or units, how much can you process, like, in a day or a cycle, however it operates?
It really depends on the system sizing. We really
Mm,
work more off of a service level, but give you an indication, our next generation of drones that'll get released here later this year will be able to scan, upwards of 1,000 locations per hour.
wow.
And then essentially we build a system up or a solution for our clients depending on the scan capacity they need, essentially how many locations and what square footage exists in the warehouse. How often do they need to be doing that scanning? And then how targeted do they want that scanning to be? With the level of granularity that we can get from a WMS system, we can run a various flight patterns for our clients. We can do full cycle counting, wall to wall scans. We can do targeted scans where we just look at movements in the last 24 hours, which tends to be where you're going to find the latest set of errors in some way, shape, or form. We can just scan for lost goods where you're looking for, areas where you were expecting an empty location and there's goods there, and let's go track those down in some way, shape, or form. So there's a lot of versatility in the solution. So, scan capacity in and of itself of an individual drone isn't quite as relevant given we typically deliver against a service level. And the service level is tied to the frequency at which a client wants to scan, the available hours that we have to be able to scan, and the square footage or square meters within a given warehouse. And then we size an appropriate solution. And a solution may require, 4 to 5 agents or drones. It may require two or three, depending on the ROI and the business case and the SLA we're trying to achieve. That being said, to give you an idea of what scan capacity looks like with our technology, our next generation of drones that'll be released here this year will be able to scan 8,000 locations per hour. And then essentially then we size a given solution depending on the size of that warehouse. We support warehouses as small as, 14, 15,000 locations, and then our largest has 200,000 locations within it.
Hmm. Interesting, interesting, and, varying sizes there. So, I mean, aside from the number of locations, like, what else is an indicator for, an operation to start to look at this technology and, have it make sense for them to be able to automate this part of their processes?
Yeah. So high flow, high volume type warehouses that aren't
Mm,
overly static tend to be a great fit for us, because it's really that movement of goods and the quality control around that movement of goods that allows us to deliver an exceptional experience for our clients. Complex inventory operations around stringent hours tends to fit well. High value goods allows us to tie a very meaningful business case because of the high cost of mistakes, right? And then historical poor performance. We have clients where they have two people, three people dedicated 365 days a year doing cycle counting, and still they only have 40-50% accuracy by through the human element. We can bring that level of accuracy and precision with our system, that can bring that from 40 to 50 to 90% plus.
Hmm. Interesting, interesting. Yeah, yeah, and I think it's interesting because seeing obviously as you highlighted that there is such a challenge around inventory control, inventory accuracy. I worked in inventory control for most of my career. It kind of never ceased to amaze me some of the ways that people misplace or, or lose inventory in different ways. So getting that set of eyes and getting away from the human aspect of it, I think is a really smart thing to automate and do that because even from the human perspective, you send somebody out there to do cycle counts and count, they don't always count correctly either, right? So you kind of like maybe make another issue, or maybe make an issue when there wasn't an issue. So that half FTE that like you can get down to that you said for the example. Now, what are they still doing? Are they like still doing some counting, or how does that look with like human interaction with your solution?
It depends on the operations. In some
Mm,
cases, what they do is they shift those resources and those FTEs to higher value activities in the warehouse. In
okay.
other scenarios, they still are required to provide some level of support around inventory management, inventory tracking. One example is item counting, right? We don't, as much as I would love to have 3D vision on our drones, we're not quite there yet. So we can't see into
Mm,
boxes, into given pallets. So, in some cases, there is a demand to do individual item counting. And if it isn't tagged with an RFID, then there is still a human component that needs to be supported in conjunction or in collaboration with our warehouse intelligence platform.
hmm. Interesting, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and I think that, does that 3D vision that you mentioned and being able to see in the boxes or see in the pick bins potentially, I think that is, that is a difficult thing to solve, but hopefully you can do it. I think that would be like a gold mine, honestly, if you can do it.
We released a solution, AI item counting, that allows us to use
Oh, really?
volume metrics and
Mm,
AI and machine learning to ultimately intuit what's within a given location. So it's an ideal solution for picking locations, for example.
mm,
As pallets get picked from, the shrink wrap gets stripped away, the barcodes get stripped away, the license plate numbers get stripped away. So all you're left is just the raw cases or raw boxes within
mhm,
that location. So what our technology is able to do is take a visual representation of the location, match that up with what it's expecting based on the volume of the cases that are in a given pallet, right? And build up a virtual view of what it's seeing, and then intuit, a case count. It's really quite impressive. We're
mm.
able to get to a very high degree of accuracy without any level of base foundational data like an LPN or something like that to go off of, just using volume metrics and artificial.
Hmm. That's pretty cool, and I think that that's really interesting because that is certainly a challenge too. I mean, that's like if I think about counting and things like that. I mean, it's very time consuming, right? It's very tedious, but where you want to focus a lot of the counting is on those ones that have been had some activity at them, right? Because there's more likely to be some exceptions there or some errors potentially because there's movement. So really interesting, and I definitely had to see that sometime how that works exactly. But so if we look at the market itself and the automated inventory side of the market, there's a few different solutions out there. I'm sure you're aware, right? Um, but tell us a little bit about kind of like where do you fit in the market and what's your differentiator? How do you stand out amongst some of the other solutions?
Yeah, there's kind of three categories I'd break it into. You've got your episodic solutions that typically are attached in some way, shape, or form to a forklift.
Mm,
And I call it episodic because really all you're tracking is the point at which you're putting it away or you're pulling it out to, actually,
okay.
fulfill in some way, shape, or form. So you don't really know what happens in between, right? But it gives you kind of that episodic snapshot of, did this get put back into a location that you were expecting to get put into? So not a very broad set of use cases, but it allows you to provide some level of forklift tracking and traceability from receiving to put away. Right? Then you have more of your autonomous robotic solutions, the tower type solutions
Mhm.
that can do high volume, but aren't quite as nimble as a drone solution. I mean, our drones are roughly 2 pounds, extremely easy to maintain, highly reliable, 99.94% reliability. And then the larger robotic solutions tend to be a little more cumbersome. They're 1,000 kilogram type robotics that need to be maintained and managed, but do a good job at high volume type scanning. And you've got various players on the drone technology side of things. I think, our differentiation is first and foremost reliability, that
Mm.
99.994% reliability. Essentially, we have one failure every 5 to 10 years. So it's not something you have to
Oh,
be
wow.
concerned about. Once the system is deployed, it is truly autonomous. Occasionally, you have to change the batteries out every 6 to 8 months or so, but that's essentially the level of engagement that you have with the physical drone itself. Secondly, we have the deepest and broadest adoption of anyone in the marketplace, meaning we don't have like one site across 150 different clients. We have clients
Mm.
going deep with our solution where they're deploying it in, our largest client has it deployed in 100 different locations.
Oh,
So there's that level of market validation that it's not, we didn't just come in and deliver a solution. We came in, we delivered that solution, and it was successful. So we're seeing broad adoption across their portfolio of warehouses. Third, the adaptability of our solution, as I was mentioning before, very flexible. It can scale all the way up to 200,000 location sites and scale down to very finite smaller sites that are 14,000 locations. That gives us a lot of versatility, especially with large, diverse warehouse portfolios that we run into very commonly with a lot of our 3PL customers.
hmm. Interesting, interesting. And you mentioned in there about the battery, like swapping it every 6 to 8 months. Is it one of the things that I've heard about some of the drones is the battery life itself, right? And how long it can stay up flying and how that translates to the number of counts it can do. Do you need manual, like, battery swapping, or how does that situation work?
Every 6 or 8 months, that's essentially the only maintenance that's required on the drone itself. You go in, you
Mm,
swap a battery out, and you put a new one into the drone. It's fairly simplistic. We ship them out as part of the service that we deliver for our clients, so there's no
okay.
additional charges for it. And it's just all bundled into the overall annual service charge that you pay for the solution itself. There's only four moving parts, being the four propellers,
Mm.
which makes it extremely reliable, which is why we have that 99.94 reliability rate.
Gotcha, gotcha. So to, I guess, maintain energy in between those 6-month intervals, it's doing some wireless charging or something like that?
It does, yeah. It has charging stations. Essentially, it has stations that it flies back to. Those stations can provide two services: one, charging,
Mm,
and then secondly is the ability to upload large volumes of data because we can connect them directly to an Ethernet connection as well. But we also support wireless connectivity.
hmm. Very interesting, very interesting. And now I also saw that you guys are working on a project, I think with Maersk about, RFID. So tell us a little bit about, I guess, how that came about, because you originally capturing through camera, right? These different scans and data points, and now RFID is kind of a different type of capture. So tell us a little bit about how that came about and how that project is going.
Yeah, it was a three-way partnership between
Mm,
Maersk, Verity, and On Running.
okay.
Most commonly, what you see with RFID is it's deployed for high-value goods that have a high propensity to get stolen in some way, shape, or form. Footwear, a common scenario for that, right? But the challenge in the warehouse for using it for inventory controls is the volume of data you're getting. Imagine you have 200,000 pairs of shoes within your warehouse, all tagged with an RFID. You're getting signals from all directions. Is it really hard for manual scanners as you walk up and down aisles
Mm,
to differentiate between what's in that aisle that you're trying to scan and what you're picking up that's noise that's one aisle over, or the next room over, or whatever it may be, right? So our pilot was designed to essentially prove out that we could weed through that noise and really get down to a level of precision to say what we're looking at is what we're picking up from an RFID standpoint. We can rely on that
mm,
for inventory control and cycle counting. We were able to prove that out. The versatility you have with the drones, meaning you can adjust heights, you can adjust cants, those sorts of things, allows us to then use signal strength to then triangulate what we're picking up, and we were able to identify RFID locators or RFID tags one room over and be able to say that's one room over, that's noise, don't worry
mm,
about that, just focus on the signal strength that's right in front of you. So it was a really interesting pilot that is now allowing us to take an investment that our client and our client's client made in more prevention of theft, and then deploy that investment for improved cycle counting and inventory controls.
mm. Interesting, interesting, and that kinda pinpointing, I mean, I think is really good, right? Because, I mean, if you take a RFID wand, right, or an overhead reader or something, you just kinda know, I mean, you know it's there, right, but you don't necessarily know exactly the location, right?
Exactly, exactly. And then kind of back to that, imagine a warehouse with 200,000 plus pairs of shoes in it, all with an RFID tag. That's a lot of signals that are coming to that
Mhm,
wand. And the wand just doesn't have the sophistication to then, essentially strip out the noise and be able to focus on what it's actually trying to scan and count. And that's essentially what we were able to prove out by enabling the drones themselves with RFID readers.
hmm. Very interesting, yeah, yeah, I think that's pretty cool because, obviously, you kinda know where it is, but then, like, you don't know exactly where it is. That's not very helpful from, like, an inventory control perspective, so so interesting that you guys are working on that. So if we look towards the future of, I guess, Verity and also the future just of kind of this automated inventory tracking, what do you think that looks like, and what can we look forward to?
It's going to be very much focused on three dimensions. One,
Mm,
further autonomy. The more we can help our clients fully automate an entire end to end process, the greater value they're going to get from our platform. So you'll see us pushing more and more autonomy into our solution. For example, self deploying drones. We still have a component of our success with our clients dependent on deployment that does require some level of human engagement. And then once they're deployed, they're fully autonomous. We're on the doorsteps of being able to self deploy. So essentially, we'll ship a drone out, it'll self map out the warehouse, it'll build that digital twin, and then it'll be fully operational with little to no human engagement whatsoever. So further autonomy will be one component you'll see from us. Going deeper in intelligence and data. The drones themselves, at the end of the day, they are an extremely sophisticated and elegant solution for capturing and sensing data. And as we're capturing more and more data, we can deliver much more meaningful insights back to our clients to help them improve their overall operations. So going deeper in the data and AI, you'll certainly see from us. And then I think, third is just continued expansion within existing accounts. That's what we do extremely well. Our
right.
clients get a lot of value from the solutions we're delivering, like I had articulated with, some of the highlights I brought up earlier in the podcast. And through that value, what they're doing is continuing to grow and expand from us. So we're really focused on going deep with our clients, not necessarily being extremely broad.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it'd be interesting to see how that continues to evolve. And I think it's great too that you're able to get that broad adoption, like you mentioned earlier, and be able to see that, okay, like this is really working for one of our sites. So let's bring this to the other site so we can get that effectiveness and that efficiency gain there, and then accuracy gain too, which I think is huge, right? Which then that accuracy points to better effectiveness, better efficiency, all around better operation in a sense. So
And
really interesting.
you get a
Yeah.
high degree of volume around self benchmarking too. Once you have
Mm,
this deployed across a portfolio of your warehouses, you can then start to benchmark them against each other. And
mm,
you get the combination of that digital data within your WMS with the empirical data that we're capturing through the drones to give you a good representation of performance site to site, and start to hone in on the areas where you need to proactively work on better operations, better movement of goods, better quality of control within a given warehouse or a group of warehouses.
mm. Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's a great point too, to be able to get that further visibility and see who's performing the best and the ones that aren't, say, "Hey, what's going on over there?" Um, Definitely. So very interesting to talk to you here today, Michael, and learn more about Verity and also the automated inventory and kind of the unlocks that you can have from your operation by deploying these drones and being able to get better data visibility all around and get an understanding of what's going on. Also very interesting to hear about the RFID project as well. So definitely we'll be looking forward to see what the future holds and how some of these things evolve. But if people are interested in learning more about Verity, what's the best way to do that?
I mean, you can contact us through our website. And that's probably the easiest way to engage us. And we're happy to jump on a call with anybody that's interested and wants to learn more about warehouse intelligence and autonomous drone technology that supports our warehouse intelligence platform.
All right, fantastic. And we'll definitely put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well as in the show notes here. So, Michael, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
Thank you, Kevin. It was a pleasure, and really appreciate the invite. Thank you.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's video here on our YouTube channel, the New Warehouse Podcast, and I appreciate you tuning in. If you liked what you saw, make sure you subscribe to our channel, and if you like this video in particular, make sure you like it as well. And if you want to get this great t-shirt that you see in the video behind me, Warehouses Are Sexy, head to warehousesAreSexy.com and get your own.